This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening and thank you for being with us tonight. The executive director of Manitoba's Yazidi Association faces a sexual assault charge. Court heard he encountered the alleged victim through the group. And a warning, some of the details that you are about to hear in this story might be distressing. The CBC's Gavin Axelrod reports.
Police confirm Haji Hesso was arrested October 4th and charged with 1 count of sexual assault. He was released on an undertaking and arrested days later for breaching conditions of his release. Court heard October 18th Hesso knew the victim through the Yazidi Association of Manitoba and that he's known her and her family for close to a decade. CBC News has confirmed Hesso remains the nonprofit's executive director. The association describes itself on Facebook as being dedicated to advocate, represent, and absorb the refugees of the Yazidi minority in Canada. In 2016, a United Nations report declared that the slaughter, sexual slavery, indoctrination, and other crimes committed against hundreds of thousands of Yazidi amounted to genocide. The city of Winnipeg also says Hesso is a contracted driver for Winnipeg Transit Plus, but he's not providing services at this time. Hesso was denied bail on Monday. The alleged assault occurred repeatedly at a space used by the association between this past July and August. Hesso allegedly made inappropriate comments to the woman and asked her to meet at his house. He's also alleged to have made advances toward her and touching her without her consent. In a statement to CBC News Wednesday, Hesso's lawyer says his client strongly denies the allegations and says he's confident the court will find he has done nothing wrong. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg woman who was charged with sexually assaulting a teen hockey player pleaded guilty to 2 charges in court today. Madison Biluk was a hockey coach and had worked for at least 2 Manitoba school divisions and multiple sports teams. The CBC's Rosanna Hempel was in court and has more.
In front of her family and supporters, Madison Biluk pleaded guilty to sexual assault and luring. The now 29-year-old was initially charged with 15 offenses in connection to incidents that happened between 2019 and 2021 when she was a hockey coach. In an agreed statement of facts, a provincial court heard how Biluk, who was 24 at the time, gradually developed a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old girl. The girl was a player on Biluk's under-18 hockey team. Court heard how, despite being warned about inappropriate behavior with players, Biluk initiated conversations with the victim through private social media messages. Over time, their relationship escalated into kissing and sexual contact on many occasions. It included Biluk taking sexually explicit pictures and videos of and with the girl. Court heard how the victim's academics, friendships, and mental health deteriorated during their relationship, which continued after Biluk was no longer her coach. Police began investigating the case in October of last year after the victim detailed the abuse in a social media video. Biluk remains out on bail until her sentencing. A date for that hasn't yet been set. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
For anyone who has been sexually assaulted, there are supports available. Victim services can be reached at the number on your screen. You can also call the Clinic Sexual Assault Crisis Line. The mother of a girl who was murdered in a quintuple homicide in Carman is suing Child and Family Services. Maya Lee Gratton was 17 when she, her cousin Amanda Clearwater, and Clearwater's 3 young children were killed in February. At the time, Gratton was living with Clearwater and her partner Ryan Howard Manakisik, who is now charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. In the suit, Gratton's mother, Juliet Hastings, alleges CFS ignored her pleas to have her daughter removed from the home for safety's sake. She also alleges CFS did not act on calls from a counselor at Carman Collegiate to intervene. Winnipeg police have arrested 3 people, including 2 boys, in connection to the murder of a teenager. On October 5th, police found a 16-year-old boy suffering from a life-threatening gunshot wound near Boyd and Andrews. He died of his injuries. Investigators identified 2 15-year-old boys and an 18-year-old man as suspects. Last Wednesday, the 2 15-year-olds were arrested in the 300 block of Dufferin Avenue. On Monday, Devin Allen Joseph Enns was arrested near Elgin and Isabel. All 3 have been charged with second-degree murder. Well, we're getting a better sense at just how much time firefighters spend battling fires at vacant properties in Winnipeg. For example, a vacant home in the William White neighbourhood has caught fire twice this month and 4 times in the past year. The CBC's Alana Cole now on the risks to emergency crews when flames break out at vacant buildings.
When a call comes in for a fire at a vacant building or house, part of the challenge is the unknown. Fire Captain Raj Sharma works at number 6 station on Redwood Avenue.
Because it's vacant does not mean it is empty. There might be people in there. There might be people using it as shelter. There might be people using it as a place to do drugs. And obviously someone will generally break into it even if they're just going to light it on fire. So we still have to treat it as if there's a life hazard involved.
CBC spent time with the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service to better understand the work of the city's first responders. Sharma says his station is one of the busiest in the city. That includes responding to fires at vacant houses and buildings. Numbers from the city show in the first 6 months of this year, there were 114 vacant property fires in Winnipeg, a total of 156 last year. Fighting them has risks.
We can't trust the structure itself. So a lot of these houses are in such disrepair. There's potential for collapse. There's potential that the floors may be compromised, that there's a lot of inherent dangers for us. And especially when they've had multiple fires in them, they become even more dangerous for us to enter.
The city started billing vacant building owners for firefighting costs last year, a move to try to get owners to take steps to reduce fires. But a city report says fees haven't reduced vacant building fires, and in some cases have discouraged building renovations, potentially leading to repeat fires. Last week, City Council approved lower fees. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Cleaning up needles and other dangerous items from parks could cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars. A report by city staff suggests hiring and deploying city crews either seasonally or year-round to regularly pick up dangerous debris from parks. It comes months after daycares in the inner city raised concerns about finding needles. The price tag, though, could cost more than $260,000 per year. Daniel McIntyre councillor Cindy Gilroy feels the report missed the mark and says she would have liked to see more options for prioritizing high-risk parks.
There's just particular parks that we know that where kids are at play, there is needles, glass, weapons, and debris that is unsafe for children. And so that's where the focus needs to be.
The report will be discussed at next week's City Community Services meeting. Another nice fall day for most of us today. Ethan Williams is here with a first check on our forecast.
Well, thanks, Riley. A lot of these temperatures that you see here through southern Manitoba, especially today, a few degrees above seasonal, getting into those upper single digits into late October. Yeah, it's pretty nice for this time of year. Now, the only active weather that we're focusing on today is that low pressure system that's in the country's north, and it is, or at least into Nunavut, and that is bringing a wind warning to areas around Churchill. We've seen a peak gust there so far today, around 81 kilometers an hour. Possible that that could go even higher into the evening hours here. This is a blizzard warning for portions of the Hudson Bay coast, a little bit to the north of there. I think snow not going to be as much of an issue there. The wind's still going to be a bit breezy at times overnight, 60 gusting 70 at times, maybe 80 kilometers an hour. But once that starts dying down over the next day or so here, you'll notice a lot of the province staying pretty calm in terms of the winds really through these next couple of days. And that is because we have this nice area of high pressure which is taking over our weather. Not just today, but I think the second area of high pressure that starts moving in will keep things calm into Thursday as well. Now, we are looking for a bit of increasing cloudiness through the day tomorrow, and that means for the trick-or-treaters out there, by the time we hit the evening hours, I think we'll see a lot of cloud cover, but we should be avoiding any rain or snow in many locations across the province for Halloween before things start to clear out as we head toward the weekend. A little bit of snow going to be moving through various very far northern sections. Again, that shouldn't ruin your trick-or-treating, but I think maybe through the day Friday, a couple of centimeters of snow in locations closer to the northern border of the province are possible. For Winnipeg tomorrow, we're starting with a sun cloud mix with some fairly light winds. Tomorrow starting the day around -3, so a jacket and gloves going to be needed on your way out the door. For the noon hour, that's where we start to see that cloud cover begin to build in. Winds picking up a little bit as we go through the day here, but shouldn't be too noticeable, I don't think. And then they really start to back off as we head through the afternoon. That's when we'll see that cloud cover start to move in. But your trick-or-treating temperatures looking quite nice, and I think they'll be staying above the freezing mark as we head into the evening hours as well, Riley. I'll have your full provincial forecast coming up in a little bit.
Thanks, Ethan. Imagine paying to stay in hospital. Well, that's what's happening to some Manitobans who are waiting for a bed in a nursing home. More on that from our I-team when we come back. Stay with us. Imagine paying to stay in a hospital. Well, that is what is happening to some Manitobans who are stuck waiting for a bed in a nursing home. Some now question a Manitoba policy to charge patients a fee when they have no other choice but to wait in a hospital until they can be transferred to long-term care. The I-Team's Caroline Bargout has that story.
For the past 3 months, Margaret Drawson has had to learn to live without her husband of 62 years by her side.
There's one of our 50th wedding anniversary and one of our...
Gordon Drawson's health started to deteriorate 3 years ago, and until recently, she managed to look after him at home. Gordon was a Winnipeg firefighter for decades and retired in 1995 as a district chief. In August, he started having mobility issues and ended up in hospital waiting to get into a nursing home. It took 3 months for a bed to become available.
It's very difficult.
And even though it was beyond the Drawsons' control, the province charged them $101 a day, the maximum amount allowed.
I think the mistake they're making, or the problem, is when you start to pay at the hospital, you pay the same as you pay at the nursing home, and there is nothing going on there. At least at the nursing home, there's activities.
Margaret Drawson is 83. Every day she drove 20 minutes to visit her husband in Pinawa. She says he spent his time in bed, so she would wheel him to the common room for a change of scenery. That's the extent of the activity he got in hospital. And yet, she was billed $2,600 for his stay. And she's one of the lucky ones. There are some Manitobans waiting 6 months or longer for a care home bed.
There are about 341 Manitobans who are currently in hospital waiting for a bed to open up in a nursing home. Once the province determines a person needs to be in a personal care home, it begins charging people in hospital as if they're already in the care home, even if there isn't a bed available for them.
In the past 3 years, Manitobans have paid more than $15 million in residential fees while waiting to be transferred from hospital to a care home bed. That's according to figures obtained by CBC News through Freedom of Information requests. The problem is particularly bad in rural Manitoba. The data shows people living in rural communities were charged over $13 million compared to $1.8 million billed to Winnipeg patients. Dr. Michel Bruno is a family doctor in Lac du Bonny. He says it's unfair to charge seniors for taking up space in hospital when they have no other choice.
To me, it's so wrong on so many different levels. In the nursing home, when patients get charged for the care there, they actually get a lot of programming. They get a recreational person who just gives them more enrichment and fulfillment in their life in the nursing home. They don't get that in hospital.
He says it's not uncommon to find half the patients of a 20-bed rural hospital are waiting for long-term care.
If you're in hospital...
Laura Tamblin-Watts is the CEO of the seniors advocacy organization CanAge. She says this practice is happening across Canada.
Nobody stays in hospital for fun. You are only in hospital because you are desperately needing health care. And nobody there wants to take up a bed that somebody needs for an acute care like a heart attack or a broken leg. What we see here is the fault of a system being levied on individual vulnerable people.
Under the Canada Health Act, hospitals are allowed to charge for accommodation and living assistance services if a person is no longer receiving active medical care and is awaiting transfer to long-term care. Manitoba's health minister understands people's frustrations, but wouldn't commit to changing the government's policy. Instead, they say the province is committed to opening more care home beds and improving health care.
Folks who are in hospitals, I want to be really clear, are receiving care. You know, folks on the front lines are doing their very best to make sure that they're able to meet folks' needs, making sure that they're able to remain stable. I know that many folks across our healthcare system want to be able to provide more care.
Last week, Gordon Drawson finally got into the Lac du Bonny personal care home. His wife Margaret feels like she's won the lottery. It's only been a few days and already she's seen a big difference in him. Margaret was beginning to worry how she would make the drive to Pinawa in the winter. Now she doesn't have to, and she's grateful for that. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Lac du Bonny.
Now to a rare bipartisan moment at the Manitoba Legislature. An NDP cabinet minister and a Liberal MLA sharing a podium to tout legislation they both want to pass. For more, we're joined by the CBC's Ian Fraze in the newsroom. Ian, what is bringing these two rivals together?
A new bill, Riley, introduced Wednesday that would educate judges on intimate partner violence and coercive control. Now, if this sounds familiar, that's because Liberal MLA Cindy Lamoureux introduced a similar bill a few months ago. But on Wednesday, she withdrew it so the government could introduce its own bill. It is a beefed-up version. Judges would also be taught about how Indigenous and LGBTQ persons have dealt with the justice system. But Lamoureux, just happy this bill is moving ahead.
Regardless of who brings forward the legislation, if you speak to the survivors here in Manitoba, the legislation is more important than who is bringing it forward.
Similar bills that have passed in other jurisdictions have been known as Kira's Law. It's in honor of a young girl who was found dead in Ontario beside her father. She died after multiple judges ignored warnings about her father's potential for violence.
So, Ian, another bill the government wants to pass would ban the use of replacement workers during work stoppages. That is something that unions have wanted for years. Well, now that bill was amended earlier in the week, and unions like that change too. Ian, what's different here?
Well, if this bill passes, businesses aren't just banned from bringing in replacement workers, they are also banned from trying to entice their own workers to cross the picket line. For example, an owner couldn't be able to offer higher wages to tempt their staff to get back to work. This move would have the effect of tying the hands of businesses even more. And as Lauren Remlard with the Winnipeg Chamber explains, some workers won't like this either.
In situations where an employee may be crossing the picket line, that person may be making individual decisions for themselves that reflect their circumstances. I need to continue to work. My circumstances are different. This would make it that much more difficult for that person to be able to exercise their independent, individual decision-making.
Kevin Rebeck with the Manitoba Federation of Labour says allowing employers to make these certain deals with workers sowed division. Now Manitoba's bill is on par with a law banning replacement workers at federally regulated industries. Riley.
Thanks, Ian. CBC's Ian Fraze in the newsroom. Brandon's new police chief was officially sworn in today. Tyler Bates is the city's first new chief of police in 7 years. He's been on the job since mid-October, but was officially sworn in this afternoon. Bates says his goal is to be a friendly face in the community that people can trust. He says recruitment and training of new members is a priority after Brandon Police lost almost 10% of its officer workforce last year.
Contemporarily, right now we're losing people at a higher rate than we have historically. So we need to be nimble and flexible and mindful of those human resource pressures so that we don't end up in a situation where we have to discontinue aspects of our service delivery.
Bates grew up in Winnipeg's North End and first served as an RCMP officer in Virden. Most recently, he was an RCMP chief superintendent in Saskatchewan. Some gorgeous shots of our city from our fabulous CBC drone team today. Trevor Bryan and Gary Sololak out there today. On another nice fall day, we have much more ahead for you coming up. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. It's a family like one you've maybe never seen before, an 11-month-old puppy taking on motherly duties, not for her own young, but for a 9-week-old rescue kitten. The CBC's Felicia Adam has more.
You wouldn't believe that Phoenix and Snickers met just over a week ago by looking at this video. Even more unbelievable, Phoenix started nursing Snickers, a kitten just weeks old, days after they met.
This is Phoenix and Snickers. Snickers just came back from hiding from me, and she is just going back to nursing.
Patricia Chonin is the founder of Crazy Jumpers Dog School and Boarding. She has 7 dogs and 3 cats in her care. Chonin has been fostering 11-month-old Phoenix since December last year. 10 days ago, she rescued Snickers from her backyard. Phoenix taking on a motherly role wasn't something she imagined happening.
It's the first thing that Phoenix is going to do, to check where her kitten is, and then she's laying in that corner, and the kitten starts nursing right away. Where did your kitten go?
Phoenix has never been pregnant. Veterinarian Dr. Jonas Watson says that makes the situation even more uncommon.
It's not unheard of to see dogs nurse kittens and potentially the other way around, but it's certainly unusual to have a case of a kitten being nursed by a non-pregnant dog.
He says Phoenix may be experiencing a pseudo or false pregnancy.
And this dog, who is probably undergoing the hormonal changes associated with pseudo-pregnancy, is looking for a small creature like a kitten to mother. So it's kind of kismet that the two of them met each other.
Watson says false pregnancies like these last 2 to 3 weeks. So while Snickers is getting the nutrients he needs now, soon he will need food from somewhere else. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
As we told you Tuesday, one component of your natural gas bill will rise on Friday, but Manitoba Hydro says most customers will see lower gas bills overall. The provincial utility regulator has approved a 4.5% hike on gas delivery charges. They cover natural gas transportation and distribution, but basic gas charges are going down for residential customers. Scott Powell speaks for Manitoba Hydro.
You combine the impact, the actual bill impact to customers of the 4.5% interim rate increase on the non-gas components with a decrease in the primary gas costs, we're actually going to see that customers are going to see an overall net bill decrease in the coming months.
This is the first rate hike for gas delivery charges in 5 years in Manitoba. Hydro says it actually needs a much higher hike, more like 14%, to recover the rising cost of transporting natural gas. Canada Post presented a new contract offer to the union representing its workers today in an attempt to avert a postal strike. Canada Post's latest proposal includes wage increases of 11.5% over 4 years, as well as protections for current employees on pensions, job security, and health benefits. Negotiations have been ongoing for a year. Last week, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers voted overwhelmingly in favor of a walkout if a new contract couldn't be reached through bargaining. They'll be in a legal strike position on Sunday. Seven Winnipeg Blue Bombers have been named to the All-CFL team. The Canadian Football League unveiled its divisional All-CFL teams today. Honored as West Division All-Stars are running back Brady Oliveira, receiver Nick Dembski, offensive tackle Stanley Bryant, guard Liam Dobson, defensive end Willie Jefferson make that, cornerback Tyrell Ford, and defensive back Dietrich Nichols. The Bombers finished the regular season in first spot in the Western Division. Speaking of the Bombers, NFL star Travis Kelce, who's also known as Taylor Swift's boyfriend, was spotted sporting some Bomber pride. Kelce was seen wearing a Blue Bomber jersey bearing the name of Winnipeg's quarterback Zach Collaros on his New Heights podcast. Travis and his brother Jason both played alongside Collaros at the University of Cincinnati and were also roommates. The three have remained friends over the years, with Collaros even being spotted in the same suite as Taylor Swift at a Kansas City Chiefs game. Manitoba's premier has taken notice of this as well and had a message for the A-list couple at the legislature.
I noticed Travis Kelsey wearing a Blue Bombers jersey today.
Yeah.
Travis, you're just like us. We are huge fans of Zach Collaros.
Yeah.
Please consider this an open invitation to visit Manitoba at any time to cheer on the Bombers. And if you come, please bring Taylor.
I mean, you can wish. Maybe Kelsey will bring Taylor to see the Bombers play in the Western Final in November. One can hope. Let's get back to weather specialist Ethan Williams.
Well, Riley, for most of us tonight through southern Manitoba, we're looking at a kind of a mostly clear night. I think maybe a little bit of cloud cover moving in. Some of us getting down, especially in western sections, closer to that -10 mark last night. With a little bit of cloud cover tonight, I think we'll kind of be in that freezing to -5 range for many of us this evening. In the north of the province, again, that's where we're going to see temperatures, especially closer to the northern border, drop down into those minus double digits. Going to feel chilly with that wind in Churchill, maybe well into the -teens there. Into tomorrow morning, though, things remaining mostly clear. We get a little bit of some cloud cover in northern sections of the inner lake. That'll help bump up the temperatures a little bit. We get above the freezing mark, but I think for much of far northern locations, we'll be into that -5 to -10 range. And a little further south, we'll be getting at or just a bit above or below the freezing mark. For those of us in southern Manitoba, starting the day tomorrow, again, already starting to see that cloud cover moving into western sections. So this is, again, where we're going to be seeing not necessarily really the chance of any rain or snow, but the cloud starts early tomorrow morning. That moves eastward into the Winnipeg and Red River Valley area by the noon hour. Temperatures tomorrow, though, going to still be staying in kind of those mid-single digits. So a nice seasonal day for many of us. A couple of models have been picking up a couple of sprinkles here and there, but I think for the most part we should be staying fairly dry. So for all you trick-or-treaters, well, tomorrow in Winnipeg, I think we're looking for a fairly nice forecast. This is for 6:30 tomorrow evening. And for Winnipeg and really for much of southern Manitoba, we're looking for those mostly cloudy skies. And maybe the moon will peek out beyond those thin veil of clouds as well to add to that spooky vibe. Winds will be nice and light, though, northeast gusting to 16, which will be good. And the temperature, again, looks to be staying above the freezing mark, which is good news. Quick look at your next few days here after we get past Halloween. Well, we're keeping pretty much status quo in terms of the forecast. Normal for this time of year is around 4 degrees, and we'll be above that the next couple of days here. Chillier night on Friday, but that's about normal for this time of year. And then Saturday for the weekend, looking at nice and sunny and warm. And I will have a look at your full 7-day forecast, Riley, coming up.
All right, we like the sun. Thanks, Ethan. Well, many kids are preparing to dress up and collect candy tomorrow night, but there can be barriers to some kids with special needs. CBC community reporter Shannalee Vidal visited 2 homes in Winnipeg that are trying to make Halloween a more inclusive experience.
Some people are making it a little bit easier to get a sweet treat and a friendly scare this Halloween. I visited 2 homes in Winnipeg to find out how they're making trick-or-treating more accessible.
This is my house for our Halloween at Hogwarts that we do every year for fundraising. You can see at night we got all the lights up, so everything will be well lit up, especially the towers. They're actually to the colors. The fundraising is on behalf of my daughter's condition, unfortunately our late daughter's condition called NGLI1, where it's a very rare genetic disease where there's just about over 100 people in the world with the condition. So we've been doing this for the last probably 7 years now. Just whatever we can, we raise it and we give it towards the Grace Science Foundation down in the States, where they are actually working on a possible cure for the condition.
I noticed also here you have an accessible trick-or-treating sign.
Yes,
Can you
that is for our slide, our candy slide. So what we do is I come up top here and the kids come down there and we give out full-size chocolate bar for can drink. And we just slide it down the candy side. The children open up their bags and they just get it that way.
That makes it so much easier, so they don't have to come up the stairs.
No, we've done that for a long time. We did it prior for our daughter's health, just with sickness and stuff like that. But now we're just going to continue using this like, because kids love it. Happy Halloween.
It can
can be as spooky or as unspooky as you like. So how it is, you can kind of see here, you walk sort of through the graveyard, it's all lit up at nighttime, and then you have the witch who will shriek at you on your way in the door as you walk past the Grim Reaper. Then as you're in there, it's sort of a bit of a sensory experience. There are some lights happening, there's some fog happening, there's some music happening. You're kind of weaving your way through the tunnel. There's some kind of surprises around every corner. Some things might yell at you, some might, hop up. At the end of the tunnel, you'll come around for one kind of final surprise before getting your candy at the end.
Be gone, evil!
Now, it is a sensory experience, but you're doing something very special on October 30th in light of that.
We are, yeah. So how it works is my husband has a son with special needs. So Nolan's lived with us for the last couple of years before we moved out here to Winnipeg, and he loves Halloween. And knowing that there are various people out there that have sensory issues, we decided to do sort of a Halloween for them on the 30th. So what it is, it's happening from 4 to 7 here, and we have the ability to adjust everything. So if the animatronics are too scary, we can turn those off. We can turn the fog machine off and on. For those that, it's too overwhelming, we kind of have a quieter spot on the other side of the driveway where maybe they want to take pictures with the skeletons. And again, we'll still have candy and treats available for them as well. And it's just kind of a fun way to enjoy Halloween that's maybe a little less scary or sort of whatever level they choose to experience it at.
Nothing is working. Another soul lost.
For CBC Manitoba, I'm Shannalee Vidal.
Still ahead for us tonight, a CBC News investigation sheds light on how illegal schemes targeting foreign workers work and who benefits. We'll bring you the story of one foreign worker when we come back. We're back right after this. Days after the federal government announced it would slash the number of permanent residents welcomed into the country, a CBC News investigation is revealing exactly how illegal schemes targeting foreign workers work and who benefits. Some immigrants become desperate enough to buy in, while others don't catch on until it's too late. CBC News and the Investigative Journalism Foundation have been looking into these schemes. Valerie Willette has the story of one foreign worker who says he paid his own wages for a job that didn't even exist.
A temporary foreign worker at this restaurant says they got caught in a complex immigration scheme. He says a Canadian immigration consultant promised him a path to permanent residence for $50,000 to be paid in 5 installments. Before making the second payment of $15,000, he asked the consultant if it should be sent by bank or cash. The reply, employer needs to be given cash. That employer was Turtle Jack's Oakville. Manager Inderjit Lamba offered the worker a full-time position as a cook. But after arriving in Canada from India, the worker discovered his job was not what it seemed. He wouldn't actually work any hours. Instead, he was told to make bi-weekly cash payments to the employer in order to stay on the payroll. In a WhatsApp message, Lamba tells the worker to ask a member of staff for an envelope, put payment in there, close the envelope, and have another member of staff put in my box, put my name on it. Because he had a closed work permit, he was not authorized to work for any other employer. He was stuck.
I have seen a wide array of abuse going on, from psychological to monetary to sexual abuse.
Immigration consultant Tatiana Boxhorn says she's helped over 800 vulnerable workers get a special permit, allowing them to work for any employer anywhere.
They're terrified to report because of what has been instilled in them. If you say something, I'm going to have you deported.
CBC News reached out to Service Canada, the agency that approved the foreign worker job for Turtle Jack's Oakville. They told us they're currently conducting compliance activities on this employer. Lamba told CBC the allegations are unproven, unsubstantiated, and are denied, adding Service Canada has not informed them of any violations or negative findings whatsoever. After being contacted by CBC News, parent company MTY said of the franchisee, "We will not renew his franchise agreement," adding they have 90 days to sell the restaurant and will never own any of their franchises again. Valérie Willette, CBC News, Toronto.
Quebec has become the first province to allow qualified individuals to be approved for medical assistance in dying months or even years in advance. Some people see this development as progress, but others do not. Vanessa Lee explains.
Sandra de Montigny is losing her memory and says she doesn't want to lose her dignity. She was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's 6 years ago at the age of 39. She had already watched as the disease slowly ravaged her father, eventually taking his life.
And it's where that I decided that if one day I have the same disease, I would want to terminate my life before the symptoms are too strong.
The Quebec mother of 3 has been fighting for years for the ability to make an advance request for medical assistance in dying.
It's about my physical autonomy and my behavior too.
Until now, Quebec patients had to give consent immediately before receiving the procedure. It's become the first province to allow a person with a serious and incurable illness to be approved for MAID months or years before they lose the capacity to make medical decisions for themselves. Some health professionals are opposed, arguing it's not informed consent.
You don't have the information. You're looking at your situation now, your views now. But when you become incompetent, incapable of making decisions, well, the situation will be different. Your views might be different. You might be happy.
Advance requests for MAID are still illegal under federal law, but Ottawa says it will not challenge Quebec's move. It will launch a countrywide consultation before amending the criminal code. Health Minister Mark Holland knows firsthand it's a sensitive issue. He saw his grandmother deteriorate as her Alzheimer's progressed.
That was deeply painful for our family.
And so I think we need time for a conversation about those kinds of issues and how we want to deal with them as a country.
Here in Quebec, advance requests won't be granted automatically. Patients will have to meet with doctors on multiple occasions, with each case assessed on an individual basis. Vanessa Lee, CBC News, Montreal.
Well, turning our attention south of the border now, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris crisscrossed several swing states today ahead of next Tuesday's presidential election. But this morning, Harris was trying to distance herself from remarks President Joe Biden made last night about a racist joke made at a Trump rally on Sunday night.
And just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
I strongly disagree with any criticism of people based on who they vote for. And as President of the United States, I will be a president for all Americans, whether you vote for me or not.
Biden took to X to clarify, saying he was only trying to say the joke was unconscionable. Harris's running mate Tim Walz also trying to tamp down the backlash on morning TV, saying Biden was referencing distasteful rhetoric, not Trump supporters. But the controversy has overshadowed Harris's huge rally last night in Washington, where she delivered her closing arguments in front of a crowd of at least 60,000 people. Among those undecided voters are many Mormons, many of whom usually identify as Republicans. But as Richard Madden reports from Utah, for this election, that may have changed.
Celebrating homecoming at Brigham Young University, founded and guided by the Mormons, known formerly as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. While Mormon voters typically lean conservative, this fast-growing denomination may be the last of the Christian right resistance in the era of Donald Trump, according to BYU sociologist Jacob Rue.
Mormon voters or LDS voters are the most likely to say they don't have a political home.
He says Mormons value character and compassion, and found roughly 12% of Mormons voted against Trump since 2016, and increasing ever since.
And absolutely, LDS voters care deeply about the Constitution. They believe the Constitution was inspired of God.
So the January 6th event really resonates.
Absolutely. I believe, and I've argued, and I've shown data that January 6th is a breaking point for LDS voters.
That includes high-profile Mormon and outgoing Utah Senator Mitt Romney, one of the few Republicans who voted to impeach Trump for inciting the insurrection.
Yeah, I made it very clear that I don't want Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States.
Utah is considered the last ruby red state west of the Rockies, and its large number of Mormon voters have long been a reliable Republican voting bloc, not just here, but in neighboring swing states of Arizona and Nevada. And those tight battlegrounds are where the small but influential Mormon vote could swing the outcome. 400,000 Mormons in Arizona, 200,000 in Nevada. And that's why both campaigns are aggressively courting LDS voters to help them win. While the church strives to stay politically neutral to its 7 million members living in the U.S., for many, Trump's character is on the ballot. You're Republican.
Born and raised.
Except this election,
not a Republican.
I don't think that he does necessarily share all my values, but I feel like he's a stronger leader.
Both campaigns are watching the Mormon vote closely in a heated election that appears to be dividing the flock. Richard Madden, CBC News, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Overseas, American officials are scheduled to visit Israel tomorrow to talk about possible ceasefires in both Lebanon and Gaza, and about the possible release of hostages being held by Hamas militants. Meanwhile, the war continues to rage. Rescue extinguished fires and searched through rubble for survivors in a town in Lebanon's Bekaa region following a series of Israeli airstrikes. The Israeli military says it targeted fuel reservoirs in military complexes there, and Hezbollah continued firing rockets into northern Israel. Today, the militants struck a military base. Flash flooding has killed at least 95 people in Spain. Several roads and towns have been submerged in the southeastern part of the country following torrential rain. One town near the city of Valencia had more than a year's worth of rain in less than 9 hours. Floodwaters have caused chaos across the region, destroying bridges and pushing vehicles through the streets. Hundreds of people remain trapped in some areas. 1,000 troops have been dispatched to help with rescue operations. Turning back to Halloween, one sleep away from now. As we head to break, let's admire some of the spooky decor at some homes around the city. We will show you one more impressive display coming up right after the break. We are back right after this.
So the inspiration for our Halloween setup was my wife. When I first met her, she was a big Halloween fanatic. We bought the hearse and we bought the Volkswagen, other inflatables, the Michael Myers obviously from Halloween, and the cat behind us and the red light. And then it just went from there, and every year we buy more and more and build up again, and you know, because Halloween is a big deal for her and my children and myself, and you know, for other people. So we want to make it fun for everybody to come and see our house. We've never missed a Halloween without dressing up ourselves. So my wife has her costume, I have mine, my 2 children has theirs, and my mother-in-law actually comes to our place and she dresses up too. It's a big event in our house, even down to the food. The parents love it, the kids love it. You know, we get people driving by and they'll stop and look and take pictures, and yeah, it's just everybody seems to like the setup. So, you know, it's Halloween, so why not?
Well, cloudier a couple of days, especially for Halloween tomorrow, but then things clearing out nicely for Saturday, gorgeous day, and then Sunday, I think, is the next best chance of some rainfall, a few millimeters possible there. Note that it's rain and not snow. We usually start seeing the snow this time of year. Possible that we could see some morning showers on Monday, though, before things clearing out into the rest of the day, Monday into Tuesday, and then the possibility of some flurries on Wednesday. But overall, these daytime temperatures staying very nice, and the overnight temperatures as well, Riley, staying kind of just a few degrees below freezing or even a little bit above that at times. So going to be a nice week ahead as we head into the start of November.
Yes, thanks, Ethan. I'm really looking forward to the sunshine on the weekend in particular. Well, thanks to Hollywood, we know that snakes on a plane don't end well. I was not a fan of that movie. Not my cup of tea. But how about alpacas on a train? Have a look at this in our daily lift. Meet Pacey and Dawson. These 2 alpacas are the goodwill ambassadors for this year's Royal Agricultural Winter Fair in Toronto. This morning's ride downtown to Union Station was to celebrate the fair's return. And judging by the reaction of surprised passengers, the fluffy pair would be welcome to commute with them anytime. That's all the time I have. Bye.